The Seven Sisters series by Lucinda Riley is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, and it's very heavy, so I'm going to put it down. As well as being heavy, the Seven Sisters series has been a global phenomenon. These books have been bestsellers, and the first book in the series, The Seven Sisters, came out 10 years ago this year. And so we are commemorating that with this beautiful hardback collector's edition. I love a book with a map. I love a naked hardback. I love a book with a ribbon to mark your place. This is just absolutely stunning. And so in this video, I am going to tell you everything you need to know about this series and why you should read the books. There are 8 books in total in the Seven Sisters series, and they're each chunky books, so that explains why that was a very heavy pile for me to pick up. And the 8 books include the final book, Atlas, the Story of Pa Salt, which actually came out after Lucinda Riley very sadly passed away in 2021. And this book was beautifully co-authored with her son, Harry Whittaker. I'll tell you more a little bit later in the video about how this incredible book came into being, but first, a little overview to the series as a whole. So, the Seven Sisters series was inspired by the myth of the Seven Sisters. Astrology fans, you may already know about the star cluster called the Seven Sisters, officially known as the Pleiades. It's actually a cluster of over 1,000 stars, but there are 6 brightest ones which are visible to the naked eye, and a 7th one which is sometimes visible to the naked eye. Apparently, back when the Greeks were writing myths about it, that one used to be more visible. The story goes that the Seven Sisters were nymphs, and they were the daughters of Atlas, who has his own whole story in Greek mythology about being forced to carry the burden of the world on his shoulders. So while he was a little tied up doing that, Orion started pursuing the sisters, until eventually Zeus, who, by the way, Zeus is king of the gods, and he had affairs with and fathered children with several of the Seven Sisters. So he's a bit of a naughty boy, but he turned the sisters into stars to have them out of Orion's reach, and also to comfort their father while he was carrying the world. And if you look up now at nighttime, you will see they are still up there in the sky, just out of reach of Orion. So Lucinda Riley took that as inspiration for the Seven Sisters that you will meet in her books. Maya is the eldest, and she is actually who our month May is named after, and her star always shone the brightest, and she is supposed to be the eldest, most beautiful of the sisters. The second sister, Ali, is short for Alcyone. Her star has actually now overtaken Maya's in terms of shining the brightest, and so that works its way in some of the stories seen as sibling rivalry between the two. Star is short for Asterope, and she is portrayed in the myths as one of the weaker of the sisters, along with Celano, in this book, Cece. Then there's Tiggy, short for Tegety. She in the myths was portrayed as fiercely independent and always lived on her own. And finally, the youngest sister is Electra, who is one of the brightest stars and is portrayed in Lucinda Riley's books as a fireball. The sisters were raised on an island called Atlantis in Geneva, owned by their elusive billionaire father, Pa Salt, who actually travelled the world and adopted each of the sisters as babies and brought them home to join the family. And Lucinda Riley really cleverly weaves in bits of the mythology into the way that she characterises each of the sisters. But if you've been keeping count, you will notice I've actually only mentioned 6 sisters so far. There is a 7th star, and that one is called Merope. And so the sisters in this book wait each year for Pa Salt to bring Merope home, but he never does. And this is Lucinda Riley being clever as well, because Merope is that 7th star that I mentioned at the beginning isn't generally visible anymore to the naked eye. And in this series, Merope is the missing sister. They all know that there is supposed to be a 7th of them. They know the stars that they're named after. And so it's a mystery running through the book. Where is the missing sister? But we will get to that. I've told you the characters, now let me tell you what this series is actually about. So the whole series kicks off with this first book, The Seven Sisters, which I've been showing off to you in this gorgeous new edition. And it starts when the sisters hear the news of their beloved father, Pa Salt's death. They all travel back home to Geneva to reunite and to mourn him, and they discover that he has left each of them a set of coordinates and a clue to where they really come from. This first book follows the older sister Maya as she traces her roots back to Rio in Brazil, And each book follows a dual timeline format. So we get to jump back in time between present day, the sister whose story we're following, and in the past, we meet someone whose story is going to be relevant to that sister. It's going to be one of their ancestors. So in this book, we go back to 1927. We meet a young woman called Isabella living in Rio, and she has just been betrothed to a man that she doesn't love. But first, she has been granted her wish that she wanted to go and travel the world before settling down, and so she sets off to Paris and Florence, where she will meet someone who will change her life forever. So it's really fun getting to travel the world in each book. Each book takes us around the globe. It's a really sweeping series, both in terms of going to so many different countries and continents, and also lots of different time periods. Through each of these different books, we get to travel to Norway, Australia, Spain, Kenya, and Scotland, and we get to meet incredible women at different points of history, each grappling with difficult decisions, striking out on their own for the first time, falling in love, and we get to learn the story of how Pa Salt came to adopt each sister. And best of all, there's a really good thread of mystery running through the series as a whole. Who is Pa Salt? Why is his death so mysterious? Where is the missing sister? And each book ends with a little glimpse into the next sister's story and leaves you with a little twist or reveal or a cliffhanger. So at the end of this first book, we've been following Maya's story, but right at the end, we get a little glimpse into Ali's story. She's the sister who will come next. And we get a twist ending that is so phenomenal. It had me absolutely racing to pick up book 2, and you will feel the same at the end of each book. And don't worry, all of your questions do get answered. I know that's very important to know before going into a series. Look, book number 7 is called The Missing Sister, so you're going to find out a lot here about that missing sister. And the stunning conclusion to the series is Atlas, the story of Pa Salt, where we do learn who Pa Salt really is. And I said I'd tell you a bit more about how this book came to be. Before Lucinda passed away, she had a very, very long conversation with her son Harry and told him everything that she had planned for how this series would end. He said they spoke for about 5 hours, and she told him her wish that if she didn't survive her illness, she wanted him to finish the series. And so, amazingly, based on everything that he learned in that conversation, plus about 30 pages of dialogue that Lucinda had written down, Harry Whittaker managed to finish this series perfectly written in his mother's voice, and it's such a gorgeous end to the series. The books are also brilliant audiobooks. So the first book, The Seven Sisters, is narrated by Tuppence Middleton, and for the final book, Atlas, the Story of Pa Salt, she is joined by Richard Armitage. And for the books in between, there are a whole host of incredible narrators. So that is a brilliant way to enjoy this series. Some really, really cracking audiobooks. So that was my guide to the Seven Sisters series, and hopefully has intrigued you to pick these books up and given you some explanation of how this series has been such a global phenomenon. I'm going to put them down again. They really are heavy, but look how long that is. That's brilliant. If you want a series you can get really stuck into that's going to consume you for quite some time, this is the one. And of course, let me show off one more time quite how beautiful this collector's edition hardback is. This is a great way to dive into the series for the first time, or if you already love this series, this is a beautiful collector's edition for your bookshelf. It's going to look very nice on mine back there. So let me know in the comments below if you have any more questions about the Seven Sisters series that you just always wanted to know, and I will leave a link here to a playlist of other videos like this where I deep dive into a series or an author's backlist. So click through and have a browse for some more reading inspiration, and I will see you next time.